Most people pay the big bucks for that.
Well, trust me, I've been going back and forth over the years trying to figure it all out since I stopped playing basketball. But we're going to jump right in and segue that in the show.
Oh,
Danielle Gertner, welcome on the show.
thank you. I'm happy to
Excuse
be
me.
on the bus.
Welcome on the bus. Yeah, yeah, good. You corrected me right there. Yeah, super pumped to have you on the show today. We were just catching up. Did you hear that notification right there?
Mm-mm.
Perfect. Only I can hear those things in my ears right there. No, it's a notification on the computer, but yeah. And if I am talking to somebody else, it's I have my producer and production coordinator in the studio. But yeah. What is this your first podcast you've been on, or have you been on other shows?
No, I've been on quite a few other podcasts.
Really?
Yeah.
What is your pre-podcast routine?
My pre-podcast routine, I was actually on a mastermind call that ran way over. It ran about 30 minutes over, but I was really interested in what they were talking about because they were doing a Q&A. But typically, I just sit and breathe and kind of get grounded. And a big thing for me is not to like pre-plan anything that I'm about to say. I really am big on speaking from the heart. And I know the best way for me to do that is just to take some deep breaths, make sure that I'm not rushing into the podcast. So I did hop off that call like 10 minutes before we hopped on and just kind of sat here, grabbed myself some water, like looked around my space, expressed some gratitude, and I'm ready to talk from the heart and share some magic, hopefully, with you and those that are watching, listening, people seeing this right now.
They are. We're live on
Right
Facebook,
now.
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. I mean, anywhere and everywhere. I think I blasted this show out. Just get more eyes on it if people want to tune in and listen, as well as, the people that eventually listen, which is the great thing about podcasts. It's kind of like how we got it right was like, hey, how do we get television and radio? Because there's commercials and they've kind of taken over, and then the kind of content that gets put out is like the same kind of content just on a different network. But now it's like, oh, there was an invention of TiVo where you could say, I don't want to watch commercials. I want to rewind or fast forward past them. And that's what we'll be able to do with podcasts and even like all this content on the internet where it's like, oh, yeah, I can just look at it up whenever I want to. I can pause that podcast. I want to go to bed at night. I can listen in the bathroom. I can listen in bed. I can listen when I'm doing the dishes. Like the access you have to someone's attention, as well as the freedom to choose when you can, consume in news and information is, just another form of freedom. I'd say that we're kind of pushing in that right direction.
It's I very much appreciate that perspective, and I kind of come from a different perspective of challenging people to consider whether they are using technology in a way that makes them free. Because I feel like a lot of people, even though there are like technology supposed to help us build freedom and have freedom and be more selective, a lot of us are not free. I think um, to everything that's out there.
No,
Uh,
you're totally on the track, and I fall victim to this myself all the time, where it's just like I'm moving around the house, and it's right here next to me, and I'm holding it like this, and it's like, oh God, I gotta throw that thing away. I gotta go a few days away from that,
I
and
literally
just
thought that the other day too.
and to disconnect, and because you're absolutely right, we eventually rely on the dependence of such stuff, and the importance of this technology. It's kind of I had a buddy of mine. You ever heard of the Urban Barefoot?
Yeah.
Jeff Shub, he's a guy, Miami. He was on the show yesterday, and we kind of just completely just because shoes and being barefoot is just like one aspect. Like, do I need these things all the time? If I'm playing a basketball game on asphalt, yeah, shoes, absolutely. But do I need them all the time? And then diving deeper into where all that comes from. Why do we need said shoes or itself? So really, really going deeper to community, to the internet, to the foods and everything around us. And one thing I would definitely say had drawn me to that community and your page online itself is the way you look at these things and the perspectives, and I would say even like your work and your job is is helping people to reconnect with those other parts of their life.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I mean, I love that you already brought up barefoot living. That's a whole spiral we can go down. You're with me right now. They come
Oh
with me.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
with you.
it's like 5. Um, yeah, that's a yeah. Just really taking a look at what are you using in your everyday life, and is it convenience? Is it giving you convenience, or is it giving you freedom? And I think sometimes people confuse convenience with freedom. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a trade-off. To go a little deeper into that, people have said like, okay, well, it's cheaper. To get this shoe, it's like really cheap, and it's stylish, and there's excessive. But it also like hinders accessibility to who and can't have, and creates like this differentiating status symbol on. And again, it's not just shoes, but you think about different technologies from like communications with cell phones. Like, okay, this thing costs $1,000, and you even think about credit, and it's like, oh, it's not actually how much stuff you can afford to buy. It's like how much debt can you take on. It really comes down to how you look at all this stuff, and it even goes back into college, and the do you need this college education? Because I would say our generation, I think you fall into a millennial as well, is we've been sold as well that we need this education. We need to take on this X amount of debt in order to have a said career. And luckily, I went to go play basketball in college, so I mean, there's definitely utility into that. And I was fortunate to get a scholarship, but I know that's something about your story that you went to college. What did you study in college? Was there anything that you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I was a business major at University of Florida. Go Gators, if any Gators are watching. Um, yeah, I went to the University of Florida. I studied business. I specialized in communications and leadership development. Minored in entrepreneurship and nonprofit leadership. So yes, there are definitely a lot of aspects of my degree that I used. Mostly the leadership and communication courses. I can't say I really remember shit from any of my business classes, like at all. Um, and I have an interesting, I guess, opinion, or I don't know. I really don't know how I feel, because I do see the importance of college. I also have a lot of friends who didn't go to college and are unbelievably successful and experienced and well-rounded, and all the things you're told you won't be if you don't go to college. But something like the way I looked at my experience was, I am having an opportunity. I am paying really for an opportunity to be around um, motivated individuals. It really wasn't so much for me about I was getting this degree from UF, but the fact that I was around a bunch of other really awesome people, if you choose to be, who are motivated and bringing new ideas and perspectives to the table. Um, yeah, another wormhole. I feel like we could very quickly travel down.
No, please, please. I mean, dive right in. I mean, you said, I went for sports, and I went to play basketball, and I want to be surrounded by the best of the best in order to continue and pursue this dream of mine. And like you said, being around, again, I think it's just like an affluent community or like club that you're joining, that you have you can afford or be able to be accepted to get into, a certain club, and that would be college. But like even what Jeff and I talked about yesterday, just like, and I think you've done this, and I think a lot of people in the health and wellness space have really, built, wouldn't even call them communities, but literally tribes now of, people that, not are just like-minded, but, are just, again, are inspired and motivated by each other enough. So, again, it's really come down to, do we need this education? The important thing is, are you getting the value out of that education? Is taking on the $50,000 to $250,000 in debt worth it? But I'm just glad that people like you, myself, Jeff. I mean, everybody. I know we have similar community friends in common, but they're always trying to just build these communities for people that are more accessible. So they have the information, they have the technology. Kind of the thing that the internet and these social medias were supposed to be able to do, is to bring people together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, I mean, would you go back to college now if you had the opportunity to, or if it was, knowing your younger self, would you go back?
Yeah, I would go back. I really did enjoy my experience and really set very clear intentions for myself to learn something new every day. Would I do it exactly the same way? No, I would study something different, I think, psychology, something more in like health sciences, something like that. But yeah, I would go back.
Mm-hmm.
Also because it was just really fun to live around a bunch of people my age, and my biggest worry at the time was passing my final exam, which was nice. So
And one thing I would say is that I'd make it at older acceptance age. I don't think 18-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids, some of them should be making like brash life decisions and choices when it comes to taking on that debt or, going to pursue, a career when they haven't been pursuing it already. I think it's something people should be chasing at a younger age. If it's something they're going to make that kind of decision to, like by 13 or 14, like, I'm going to go after this career. Let me start studying up and learning for it and start moving in that direction. But yeah, it's just a system that we got to evolve, like many other systems in this country. Um, and I think, you're someone who's working on that in the health, wellness, mindfulness, just like simple things like you just talked about before you started the show. You're sitting down, you're taking some deep breaths, getting a little bit more present and aware of what's going on around you, because we think that just because we jumped into an internet portal to talk to people from all around the world. You said you were in a mastermind Q&A, and now you're talking to some guy called the bus driver in Los Angeles. Like, this is still new for us as a species. It's a lot for our minds to take in and try and grasp. And I think it's people forget it's as simple as taking some deep breaths sometimes to really bring you back down to earth, because reality is nuts.
just talking about the simplicity of health, right? I do want to say too, I love what you said about making classes in schools more hands-on earlier on. I love that. I would have loved that just as a student. I just wanted to mention that about college, because I agree. Or changing the story around what college is supposed to do for you. A lot of my clients that I work with tend to be right out of college or I call them freshmen in life, when they graduate and they start their
That's
first
good.
job. Because realistically what they are, and there's all this pressure. I worked with a client a couple months ago who had just graduated, and one of the biggest things we had to work through was, okay, I got this degree, now I'm at this job where I'm getting paid this pretty good money, and I'm fucking miserable. Sorry, I hope I'm allowed to curse. I said fucking.
Oh, say you can take the topics, subjects, talk about whatever you want. Bus
Yeah,
talk.
yeah. So yeah, I think just the pressure around going to college, and the fact that when you graduate, like, get this job. I mean, that's why I just started my business, because I was on that conveyor belt of like, hey, welcome to the University of Florida. And it's not just UF, it's just the college culture of, hey, welcome to UF. Like, here's how you write a resume. Here's how you shake people's hand. Here's how you get dope ass internships. Fill that shit up and like, let me ship you off in this package. And I was very much like all tidy with my little bow, ready to graduate, and realize like, wait a second, let me take a step back. I've never actually asked myself, what is happiness to me? What is fulfillment to me? What is success to me? I was just basing it off the definitions everybody has always told me those things were. And I'm so glad I did it, because when I was a senior, I turned down 2 full-time jobs from great companies. Could have probably been making some more money than I'm making right now, but I guarantee that I would not have been as happy and as fulfilled. I fucking love what I do every day. I love my schedule. I love my little tiny home that I'm sitting in right now. And I love that I was able to pick my shit up and move to Austin. So anyway, little
Yeah.
spiel there, but
Austin's amazing. I've spent so much time there over the past few years, from podcast conferences to being stuck with a bus there on the way to South America, and there's a hurricane.
Not a bad
Uh,
place.
that's like the saying about Austin, not a bad place to be stuck. I
Yeah,
think that should be like the town quote right there.
yeah. I've been here I can't believe it's been 2 months already.
And I'm guessing you love it. Community is amazing there, and it's so
Uh,
diverse.
It's great. I mean, I obviously am not seeing the full community with everything that's happening with the pandemic, which has been an interesting. It's been an interesting transition, but definitely little bits here and there. I frequent the drum circles. You can
Mm-hmm.
catch me at the drum circles every Sunday, and I've met some really really awesome people. It's definitely a vortex. Somebody described it as, and it makes sense because I ended up meeting like friends of friends that like you'd never expect to be here, and it's a great city.
Mm. Yeah, the live music part. Once that starts opening up, I mean, you're experiencing with the drum circles right now, but when I was stuck there for like that 4 to 6 week period back in 2017, I want to say it was, I ended up like going to different shows like every night, like local bands that were just, so wide ranging in music. So be pumped for when things start opening up. There's a vaccine, or um, yeah, everybody starts respecting the rules, maybe wearing some more mask. It's unbelievable. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to go back to your senior year thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
What was it for you? Did you have some kind of moment? Was it some kind of event from, you read a book to having a psychoactive experience? Like, what triggered you to say, whoa, maybe this isn't for me right here. I think I'm going to turn these two jobs down. Or no, it was more
Yeah.
of what makes me happy.
Um, Honestly, so it wasn't like there wasn't a moment, a defining moment. I think thinking back on it now, I didn't like the person I was becoming. I didn't love how competitive I was becoming and how worried I was about this future version of myself that really I had very little control over. And I don't know. Well, I will say I'm very lucky to have surrounded myself with really great mentors, which has been huge. So those of you watching this, like, please make sure you have great mentors in your life who like look at you in your eye and will tell you whatever it is that they need to, whatever truth they need to share with you. And I had a mentor ask me some of these questions of like, where do you see yourself in the bigger picture of things, and what kind of life do you really want to live? And when I answered that question, I was like, oh shit, is me getting a job at Amazon, because that was the track I was on. I did an internship with them. I got a full-time job offer, and is that where I see myself? And yeah, the answer is no. And then the other answer and hard part, which they don't teach in college, which they should, is how to trust yourself, how to trust your own ability to figure your own shit out. And I think college, unfortunately, and it's not just college and that system, but a lot of different systems make us really dependent on other people for information and other people for validation and other people for, yeah, this is the right step. Um, and it made me test the shit out of that, the trust I had in myself and the trust I had in the universe. So long answer to your short question. There wasn't a defining moment. It just, as I sat with myself and my thoughts, and realized, and asked myself, am I enjoying who I'm showing up as? Am I showing up as my fullest self? Every time I answered no, I was like, all right, well, something needs to change. And I had started a boot camp at UF. I don't know if you know this, of kind of how I really, really fell in love with teaching fitness. I started a boot camp at UF called Gator Grind, which still exists today, which is pretty cool. October will be 5 years, which is wild. And nothing excited me more than teaching a boot camp and teaching people how to move. And really, what I didn't realize then, but I realize now, is teaching people how to tap into that trust and how to tap into that power and how to tap into that deeper sense of knowing. And that's what I do now as an ownership coach. So again, long answer to your short question, but don't ask me good questions like that, because then I'm going to go off on tangent.
My apologies, then. My apologies. Yeah, like you said, there really isn't the we're really forced to look outwards rather than inwards, when it comes to our education, when it comes to who we want to be, what we want to do, from especially pressures from the older generation. I feel like, I want our generation, or, whatever you want to call it, millennials, Gen Zers, this younger generation to not give up like those boomers did, in that late 60s, because the world is moving even faster, and we shouldn't be told to have a stranglehold of, to question the system. And these are some of the biggest questions to have. It's like, yeah, guys, these systems aren't always going to be there. They're not always going to work. How can we mold and adapt them to fit in not even more people, but to make the world a better place in terms of like, because the individuals are going to be happier. They're going to be doing things they want to do. Like just like we didn't always have jobs, like work and jobs like didn't always exist. You either just like had a farm and you worked on the farm to make sure you had enough food. And that was kind of it. It wasn't just till the Industrial Revolution where we were like, hey, everybody's got to go to work and you need to eat these cornflakes or eat this like industrial brand breakfast item because breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And like that was it. It's like, I think there's more. And just like that ability, and anybody's listening, just because you want to question that there's more, ask those questions. Ask those questions. You got to throw your ideas into the ether in order to get some feedback on that. And
take a
that's
step
why.
back.
But that's the hardest part because it's again we're all reflecting and throwing this stuff out into the world, and it's so hard. Have you ever seen the documentary The Defiant Ones? Oh man, I watch it almost once a month just to get inspired. It's a 4-part.
Ones.
Yes, it's it chronicles Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, kind of like their lives in the music industry, and how they came together under Interscope, and then really made Aftermath and everything as it is. But talking with them as producers and these genius music producers that they are and they were. And Jimmy Iovine just has so many great quotes. I didn't know about him until I watched this doc, and just talking about that horse with blinders, and it's like, why do you think the horses have blinders on? And it's just you cannot be looking at anyone else when you're trying to chase your dream or vision. Yeah, it's very simple. You may have heard this before. People have heard this, but just like you can't be looking at that other horse and how he's doing or what he's doing. You have to be so gung-ho and set on who you are, whatever this project or passion is that you have, and you can't look any other way. But again, it's so hard when we have all these different sensory overload, images and lights and colors and bright stuff. I mean, I'm even sitting in the studio as I say this, and I got all these tapestries everywhere.
And even too, just the thing about social media and technology is the playing field, which has always been the same playing field, right? But we now can see the entire playing field. I can connect with people in different cities. And it's interesting because I very much agree about having those blinders on in terms of connecting with yourself, not comparing yourself to others. But on the flip side of that, on the other side of this, where the blinders don't serve you well, is not opening yourself up to realizing how tight those blinders have been on your eyes, and that you've been on this conveyor belt of, okay, you did this, now we're climbing this and this and this. And I remember I just had this mentality of I'm climbing this ladder, right? Okay, I graduated high school. I was a boss ass bitch in high school, I mean, well, whatever. No, but like then I got to college and at UF, and I got involved, and I got the internships and the job, and look at me. If I kept that trajectory up, I could see myself being a C-suite, in the C-suite one day, because I thought that was the path that I was supposed to be on. That's what I was taught. That's what was ingrained in me. And we have to realize, first of all, there's so many ways to live. So many ways to live your life. So many different types of people that are living their lives in their own way. And I think it does take a huge part opening yourself to the possibilities of and trusting that your life can look any way you want it to. Because I've seen a lot of people live a lot of crazy lives, and what it comes down to is as long as you're okay with it. And so that's where I think the blinders do come in. Once you have that clarity of, this is how I want to live, this is how I'm defining success and fulfillment, and then snapping those blinders back on and not getting distracted by what everybody else is doing.
People seem to be afraid to define their own lives or define their own reality. It's just like the safe way is to go with what you know. Oh, this person's doing this over here, I'm just gonna do this right here. And I think it's it's not a negative because it's in people who, and I have plenty of these people in my life, like, why are you doing this? Why aren't you going this traditional route? And why are you going around here and there? It's like, it still comes from a place of care. You know, these people love you and they want the best for you. You know, they want you to go in the path that's going to be, you know, best for you. But, you know, not getting deterred is, you know, is the hardest thing. And I think you mentioned it. What was the point you were mentioning with it? Just like, I mean, I can go this route, I could be this person and see this thing, but, you know, just didn't suit me right.
Yeah. Good. I think too, like realizing, I mean, this was a big realization for me and had made a huge impact in my life, not just in terms of career, but just everything. But people are always projecting their own shit on you. And it's not always like, it's not necessarily with negative intentions, right? Because you're right. When my parents were like, you sure you want to turn down an $80,000 a year job to go teach boot camps and like sweat your ass off all day? Like, really? Are you sure? And yes, their best interests, they had my best interest in mind. And they also had their fears and their conditioning and their worldviews and their perspectives in mind as they're sharing this with me. And so, you know, those of you listening, like that's something to consider too, is when somebody is giving you advice, when somebody is projecting their opinion on you, there's a much, I think, deeper story. And, you know, one of my favorite poems, and I usually share this on podcasts because it always comes up some way or another, and it's coming up right now for me, is The Man in the Glass. And that's my favorite poem. And basically, I'll give you a little part of it because I have it fully memorized. It's also on my mirror, and I read it every morning. But if you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your mother, brother, or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The one whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear until the end, and you've passed your most difficult and dangerous task if the man in the glass is your friend. And there's more to the poem, but that initial piece, I mean, I read that when I was in college and I wasn't happy with the person staring back at me in the mirror. And I was living for other people's opinions and validation and, you know, wanting to make sure that everybody else was okay with my life, but was I okay with my life? And, you know, circling back finally to the question you asked me of like, you know, what happened? Why did you decide to start the business? It was realizing, holy shit, I'm living literally for everybody else. As long as everybody else is cool, like I'm okay, but I'm not fucking great. And I got one life. I want to be fucking great. I want to feel awesome. I want to wake up every morning and be like, fuck yeah, I get to teach classes. And I traveled the country. I told you this for 2 years with a movement and music festival. I couldn't have done that if I worked for whatever company. And so, yeah, be proud of the person staring back in the mirror. And if you're not, then get clear on what will make that person proud. Now you're going to get me all passionate and all emotional.
I mean, that's just the bus. That's not me. That's just bus driver energy, BDE. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you've built it into a really solid platform that you're still working on now. And how is that going with COVID and everything? I mean, I'm sure. I think I watched a video of you still training like some volleyball team, and you're you're just watching them on Zoom from where you're at, and that,
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. But like, hilarious in the fact that you know I dig the commitment because
Yeah.
I get it as a former athlete. Like,
No excuses.
no, no, and just like you look at somebody, you can see that form, like, yeah, can you get that butt a little lower? You know, we're doing deadlifts. You know, yeah, you're arching that back. Let's tuck it back in, get that spine tucked under. What is it? The butt tucked under the spine. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The power of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been so there's a couple facets of what I do. So I'm a strength and conditioning coach for a team back in Gainesville, which is where I moved from in Florida. And I'm lucky enough that the coach allowed me to continue working with them over the summer, regardless of the fact that I moved. And honestly, it's one of my favorite things that I do, and it kind of fell into my lap 4 years ago. But so that's been going great. It's definitely not the same. I miss being hands-on with them in that aspect because especially so I work with a junior college. These girls are, 18 to 20 years old. They're pretty young. They're coming fresh out of high school or if they were playing in high school or club sports, this is their first time in a collegiate strength and conditioning environment. And for a lot of them, more hands-on cues is definitely helpful. And so it's really tested me as a coach of how well do I communicate, because I can't physically adjust them or cue them. I have to use my voice. And so it's been really interesting, but it's been going really well. And then in addition to the workouts, I built this Own Your Athlete program, which is a mindset and habit transformation program specifically for athletes. Because again, I work with women, these young female athletes also at this level, this junior college level, they're not playing for UF that has a dietitian on staff and like a sports psychologist on staff. So how do I give them those resources? Because they struggle with a lot of the same things that somebody at UF would. And so I built that program, and that's been really cool because we've been doing weekly workshops and discussions, and they listen to podcasts every week. Anyway, I love doing that. And then my online training programs have been amazing. I run Own Your Shit 90-day programs, habit and mindset transformation programs. And my last group, it was called the Season of Growth. They started the program March 23rd. They started on my birthday. So like in the fucking middle of this pandemic, like blowing up all over the world. And then for 3 months worked with me when some of them lost their jobs. Some of them had to make huge pivots. Some of them were sitting alone with their thoughts for the first time ever. It was the hardest and the most rewarding program I've ever run. Because again, I really had to learn how to show up as a better coach as I was handling my own shit. So anyways, it's been really good in that aspect. Moving in the middle of a pandemic has been really interesting. Definitely not what I expected and what I expected my move to be like. And who knows when things are really going to go, I'm not going to say back to normal, but when things are going to reopen and people are going to be comfortable meeting in big groups again. And that's been a huge ego check. I will say that I am so used to, like in Gainesville, I knew everybody. I was running all the classes. I was being asked to lead classes all the time. And coming here, like nobody knows me. And it's been tough to sit in that and to really like break down and pull apart this huge side of me that really was still attached to external validation and being seen and being heard. So I kind of gave you that in a couple of different parts. Work has been great. Move has been interesting. I wouldn't trade it for anything because I'm learning a shit ton. But yeah, 2020. I remember I led a 2020 vision workshop in December of this last year. Like 2020, we're gonna be the fucking clearest we've ever been. Oh my God, yeah, we did this whole thing. It was great, and then all of this happened, and then it's like, fuck. So much for 2020 vision, right?
Oh, I mean, like you said, I mean, I think it was great that it's going to force everybody to change. Like, hey, if you weren't going to do something before, something had to change now, now's the time because nothing's going to be the same. Like, nothing already was the same, but now it's like that, like, speedometer's been turned up, and it's like, okay, everything's moving at, like how I listen to shows, like at 1.75 speed, so everything is just, like, in your face and coming at you now.
Oh my God, how you listen to shows, I could never.
I can't even play it out loud because people in my house are just like, turn it off, turn it off. I have a headache already, and just like, yeah, I just got content to consume. I have to just.
I'm a huge note taker though, so like that would drive me. I have a hard time listening to podcasts because I like to take notes. I'm like, oh my God, that was so good. I have to write it down. It's funny.
Probably the thing I could do better, but I do a pretty good job of dissecting and like taking down information, especially I would say I'm photographic memory on that side where, you know, like can use my eyes close them and just like I'm writing the word or writing what's being said, or just listening that closely to analyze it. So, yeah, I think I'm that good at retaining. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I don't know, but yeah, it's where were we going with this? Yeah, I think you mentioned that it reminded me a lot of when I went to go coach in Kuwait. And I'm going into this brand new culture. I'm like, oh, it's Kuwait. It's going to be fun. It's a different country. And I didn't know there was Sharia law. There's no drinking. like being social for, a young man between, what was I, 24, 25 when I first went out there. It's like, yeah, it's like tough to find things to do and places to go out and people to connect with, especially in your odd work times of training people. But, so like, again, like I really, I hadn't lived like that much in isolation in terms of like spending so much time meditating some days for like 30 to 90 minutes. Like it was like I got really, really in deep with myself and, connecting with myself and just growing as a person. Like it really changed me to that next step. So um, it's a lot of stubbornness you got to get over of like your youthfulness. It's like, oh, I want to get out, I want to get there. And it's like, no, no, no. While at the same time, it's like trying to communicate with kids who speak a completely different first language and trying to understand that culture and, trying to mix those in with teaching them a game that most of them have never seen or played before, basketball. It's like, okay, this is a real test right here. This is going to not just make me a better communicator as a coach, but as a person. Because if I can empathize with somebody who, I think people forget that when you are learning a new language, you have to understand the culture first, where it comes from, and then try, and if there's a religion that's tied into that culture or that language, you want to understand that as well, because a lot of those things are going to like cross over. I mean, I'm trying to think of like a triangle it's all going to connect somehow in some way, because like if you try and translate those words back to English, sometimes it's just like, wait, what? That makes no sense. Why would you say that to me? And so it was just a massive growth op right there. And kudos to you for trying to do it in a pandemic. Did you decide to move during the pandemic, or you had this set in plan
No.
before?
No, no. This moving to Austin had been something I'd wanted to do for a really long time. I'd been feeling called to leave Gainesville for a while, and I set a date, because if I didn't set a date, I would have never come. I would have just been like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do it next year. And really, the beginning of March is when I signed my lease. Like, not realizing how serious the pandemic was becoming and going to become, and already was. And yeah, so I signed the lease, and I remember like the beginning of April being like, what the fuck did I do? Like, holy shit, like I'm gonna go there and it's gonna suck, because not only am I leaving like all of my friends, all of like my familiarity, and I was in Gainesville for 8 years, and yeah, I don't know. I sat with that fear. I had a lot of fear, and I sat with the fear, and I got to understand the fear, and I listened to her, and um, my highest self was like, this is still the right move. This is still a good decision that you go and do this. And I don't know why. I still don't know why, what my purpose is here, who I'm supposed to grow into here. But every time I get nervous of like, because now we're hearing that Austin and other cities, Texas might shut down again because cases are rising. And I feel that fear of like, oh my God, what did you do? What did you do? And that voice just comes back in. That's like, dude, chill, chill. We're meant to be here right now. We're meant to be here. We're meant to learn. And, going back to what you said of going to a different country, like how I never really understood, I didn't realize this, but how do people expect to change when their environment is the same? And I'm going to spit some Joe Dispenza, because I've been kind of getting into his work a little bit and reading the habit of breaking the habit of being yourself. But we think equal to our environment. If we see the same people every day, if we take the same road to work, if we eat the same shit, if we do the same thing every day, our thoughts are always going to be equal. So how do we think greater than our environment? Well, a lot of times a really easy way to do that is to change your environment, which is what you did. It's what I did. And man, my thoughts have changed. I haven't thought the same shit that I've been in Gainesville, or since I've been haven't been in Gainesville. So
Yeah, I think. See, I go just like full force, just like, okay, set a date, ridiculous ask, and you're just thrust into it. I just like basically, it's, all right, you're here. We're on the end of an airplane. Here's your parachute. We're dropping you in here.
yeah,
Because like, yeah, like you said, it's if you don't force that change upon yourself sometimes, and I mean, we're seeing that with people all around the country. It's just like, one topic, like race relations, just like, oh, people feel this way about certain things, whether it's a statue or a flag, and it's like, yeah, people have felt this way. Like, this is not something new. Like, again, like, oh, I didn't know someone felt that way.
It's going back to taking those blinders off, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they do serve you well at times, and just knowing when they don't serve you well. Yeah, it's funny too, because when I was moving, and this was happening, and I'm realizing like, oh my god, now like Texas is in complete shutdown. I knew that I was going to have to mandatory self quarantine. I wasn't even sure they were going to let me in the state, because I was coming from Florida, which already had high cases. And I contacted my current landlord and was like, hey, can we like push my lease back to like May or June or July, because I'm not sure what's going to happen. And she wasn't able to. And I kind of took that as a sign from the universe of like, all right, we're going, we're doing it.
We got to execute now. It's too
We're
late.
going, we're spreading our wings, baby. And shit might hit the fan, but we got us always. We got us always.
You said you were in Gainesville for 8 years. Are you originally a Floridian, or where are you originally from?
I am. I'm originally from South Florida, born
No,
in
where?
September times.
Get out of town. I'm Davy.
Davy?
Davy, born and raised. I went to
Yeah.
Flanagan my first 2 years of high school for basketball.
Wait, where did you go?
Flanagan.
That's where I went to school.
How old are
That's
you?
crazy.
How old, how old are you? When did you graduate? 2006?
26, so I graduated in 2012.
Okay. Nope, I would have missed you because I only went there my freshman, sophomore year. So this is like '05, '06,
Okay.
or '04 to '06.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just missed you, but unreal.
That's so funny. You want to know what's crazy too is I went to a gym. There's a gym right across the street from me, and I've been checking out different gyms in the area and started talking to one of the coaches, and turns out she also went to Flanagan, like super randomly across the street. And again, it just like goes back to that vortex, and getting these little signs from the universe of like, nah, like you're supposed to be here. Like yeah.
Completely. I've experienced that in like relationships and dating though. It's like because I've lived all around the world, been all over the place. You know, even like people you try and connect with across cultures, especially like in a relationship, it's like it's way more, it's so much more difficult because it comes back like you said, whether it's that vortex of energy of the place that made you or where you're from, because Florida's got some unique energy. I mean, we got Florida man and Florida woman, and the news and information that comes out of there is just, I'm just all the time like, I'm a proud Floridian. I don't live there. No, I can't go back and live there, but man, I love those people. They made me something. But trying to connect with somebody and not understanding their values, and then a lot of people themselves don't know their own values and don't know the things that they believe in or the things that make them so them, because they either haven't asked themselves that, and because we live in this interconnected world, like we see so many people butting heads now because we're asking questions that we never asked before. Number one. Number two, like we're just emerging across different peoples that just have completely different value systems that we have. And it's just like, yeah, you got to do your work, and you got to you got to know the person that you're being spending your intimate time with.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if you want to go to like a very scientific level with this, which is one of my favorite things to do, because I was the type of person you would talk to me about like universal energy and manifestation, and I'd roll my eyes and be like, get the fuck out of my face. Like, what are you even talking about? That's how I was. Like, I didn't grow up around parents or friends who were into any of that stuff. Like, you should hear the conversations that happen between me and my parents now. And I'm like, yeah, like energy, and like they scoff at me. They're like, what the fuck?
I don't
But
want to talk about those relationship
yeah,
questions right now.
we need a whole
Looking at
nother
my,
podcast to go. We need a whole nother podcast to go down that rabbit hole of all the shit that I have. And I love my parents. I have a great relationship with my parents,
love
and
them.
they also fucked me up in a lot of ways, as a lot of parents tend to do, because they're also just like, they didn't ask themselves these questions, right? But anyway, what I wanted to, going down the scientific route, if you literally think about, have you read Sapiens? Have you heard of Sapiens?
Yes, I've read both.
Uh,
Was it Homo
so,
Deus is the sequel, right?
yeah,
And yeah, what's his name?
You
Novell.
all, you all know.
Yeah, amazing, amazing
Yeah,
author. I still
I'm,
haven't
I'm
read the
looking. I'm
20, the
looking
10
at it,
reasons or the 21 reasons to be in the 21st century.
but
I
I
haven't read
haven't
that
heard
one
that.
yet.
Mm-mm.
That's another new one he's come out with. But yeah, they're definitely books to go back into, and I know you can
Well,
give
and yeah. Oh,
a better gist
there's
of what they're
well,
about.
I only read *Sapiens*. I haven't read the second one, but the reason I bring it up is because I just want people to understand that at a foundational level, what you mentioned this in the beginning, like all of this, these distractions and external feedbacks can constantly being bombarded in my face. When you said like we're not ready for them, literally at a foundational scientific biological level, we are not ready for them, because if you think about what we're here to do, first of all, is to reproduce and survive, and those instincts are very much ingrained in who we are. And then there's this ego, right? And the ego's role in our lives is to protect us and to keep us safe. And I forgot how we like looped down here, like I ended up saying this, but
Parents, relationships,
oh,
like understanding where we come
oh, okay, yeah,
from,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
values,
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. I needed that.
recall.
I need one of you with me like all day, every day. You should see me on Conversation with my clients. I'm like, I just get so lost in the sauce talking about something. I'm like, wait, why did I bring this up? And they'll have to walk me back through, and I'm like, oh, you're a good fucking friend and client. But yeah, so when you're in a relationship, when you're just in any sort of social setting, like instinctively we want to belong. And if you read *Sapiens*, you learn a lot about that humans, Homo sapiens, are communal beings, that our families were raised in groups. Women didn't raise their kids on their own. This was a community effort. And so these deep desires that we have now, that we carry now, to want to impress, to want to be validated, to want to belong, come from those very they're primal instincts. They're primal parts of our being. And I just think that that's a really important thing for everybody to understand, so they understand where it's coming from. There's not something wrong with you that you want to be liked and loved by the masses. It really is ingrained in who we are. And it's learning to go from that primal brain into that highest self, which again, I feel like I can go. I love talking about this shit.
I'm not stopping you. Keep
Yeah.
going right ahead. Do you know?
Okay.
Are you familiar with Dunbar's number?
Mm-mm.
Um, it is like one of those, not just a theory, but they kind of like have really scanned and studied the detail of the brain and how many intimate relationships that the brain can actually experience. And you think about, everything you just reflected on with, where we come from as a species, and like, the way we live now is not the way we've been living for, hundreds of thousands of years since we've been Homo sapiens. They're, estimating around 200,000 years ago. So, we lived in these groups, we lived in these tribes, and, we just never got to over 150 people sometimes in these small groups that we lived in. So, like, that's where the brain was able to really expand to, have that many intimate relationships. In terms of, people get the word intimacy so confused with just like sex, and it's like, no, 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 like having intimate relationships, or experiences and moments. It could be a conversation, it could be, sharing something with somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that level of intimacy. So we only are able to handle our minds, at least, and you think about like office buildings, whether you live in New York City or you live here. I lived in New York City. It was just like, it's too much. I can't do it. I just don't feel at home here. Like, it's just this really like man-made structural environment. It's a great looking jungle gym to go and visit and run around on, but our brains just aren't programmed for that. And you think about even in your neighborhood, and people look at me funny all the time when I walk around Echo Park out here, because I talk with people. I say hi. I go to the coffee shop. Who are you? Where you come from? What, you live around me. Like, that natural fondness and curiosity of these are the people you live around. God forbid anything did happen or something wrong, or you needed some sugar from your neighbor. Like, you should be able to go knock on your door and know their name and say, hey, actually, I don't need this. It's poison, but I just want to say, hey, I'm Brandon. I live next door. You need anything? We're actually having a barbecue. Come over. Like, what else would it be for? Like, it's what we're, and it's probably the problem with COVID right now, is that we are social beings and social creatures. We thrive on, especially now that we have that, looking for that social acceptance with our outward appearance and the things we do. And now we can't do that. And it's like, it's killing us. But going out and connecting and being with other people is going to kill us as well. So it's like, it's tough for us, especially because
Well,
there's so many of us.
yeah. Well, and you think too, like, this is a conversation I have a lot with my clients, like the root of a lot of anxieties, right? And a lot of depression is this overload on the brain, on the nervous system that we are not programmed to handle, and then not taught how to reprogram, because it is possible to reprogram the brain and the functionality and the capabilities of your being, but we're not taught that. And so with this overload of information and all of these pressures and decision fatigue, we make more decisions in the first hour of our day than our ancestors made all fucking day. Maybe in a week, we make
Well,
more of those decisions, like answering text messages, emails, just all of the things, right? And yeah, so yeah,
what a
that,
scary and crazy idea. I never even thought of it. Like, I think of like the days that I do wake up with my phone in my bed and how much stuff I get done. I'm doing before I even leave that bed sometimes. If I didn't leave my phone outside, and it's like, shit, I have not left bed yet. I've done way too much. I've probably lost a bunch of friendships from, or even family relationships from arguing about politics and things going on. And it's like, wow, I did this before I left bed today. What a day. So
and
much is getting done.
yeah, and like didn't tend to, I mean, for me it's I have to fight that pressure. Like, I was talking to a client about this today, of feeling this pressure of like, okay, I need to get up right away and answer these emails, or I need to get up right away and I have 4 text messages, I need to get back to these people right away. Really understanding the difference between urgent and important, and setting boundaries for yourself. And I think all of these things kind of tie back into even the first story about my college experience and not knowing how to set boundaries or what my boundaries were. So
I would say the boundaries is like one of the biggest things for even like self-employed business owners as
I
well
told you,
as
you hit me up. You're like, oh, you want to film on Wednesday? I'm like, nah, man, I'm sorry. Wednesdays are that's my day. Love
you
you,
got to
but
set those boundaries. You got to set those boundaries. Even like a client's just like, I will not be able to get this thing edited or get this thing done. Because if you don't, people will ride that and they will ride you until they get whatever they want from it. So it's like,
I think we're also taught, we are taught more is better. More is give me more, give me more. Let me have more clients and do more things and show my face on social media more. But we don't realize is we only have 100% energy. And every time you're doing some other shit, and I'm not preaching to you. I promise you, I'm telling you, like, this is Danielle, ego Danielle, hear this, okay? Hear this shit as I say it, right? Every time we spread our shit out, that's 20% energy there, energy there, energy there, energy there. And realizing like you gotta spread it wisely. And I just started asking myself, what's the worst that can happen if I let this thing go? And a lot of times it wasn't so bad. It ended up allowing me to open myself to the things that were actually meant for me, not the stories that I had built about the things I thought were meant for me. And there's a big difference between those two. And again, it goes back to college. The things we think are meant for us, how do you know if they're actually meant for you?
questions we all need to ask ourselves. And because I mean, I think people look at you or some people look at me and it's just like, nah, going through my own shit as well. Got way too much shit spread out on that board, and there's just parts of me everywhere and everywhere because you just want to take on everything. I think it's been an amazing ride because I have a hard time saying no to things, but I get to experience and do so many amazing things and meet so many incredible people. But I'm at that point where it's like, okay, no, you could optimize this. And as I'm sitting here, I got my production coordinator just shaking her head at me, like, "Yep, like we're getting organized now."
Yeah.
What I wanted to go back to was kind of like the science, because especially you've been working with a lot of young athletes as well as, collegiate athletes. What is like some of the biggest things that they're missing that they could be working a lot more on?
Physically, mentally, where all of it? Where do you want me to go with
Oh, you go where you
this?
want
Ooh,
to go with it.
oh my
'Cause
God. All
I got
right.
my own takes on this.
Okay. Oh man. The biggest things I think they're missing, first and foremost, and I know this is really general, but this is a hard question to ask, is self-awareness. I think so many of my young athletes that I have worked with, the women that I've worked with through the programs that I was coaching, I coach volleyball as my main sport, but basketball and softball as well. And there's very little self awareness. If I ask them a question of what makes you happy, what are your values, what are your goals, it is very difficult for them to articulate those answers. And that's really difficult as a coach because I rely a lot of times on people's self awareness to help them get to that next level, which is why I started teaching self awareness in the first place. So I think that's a really big thing. I think another big thing is, and I'm kind of plugging myself here in the work that I do, is lack of ownership. I'm an ownership coach for a reason because I recognize how few people take ownership over their lives, over this ability to be like, oh, fuck, I'm wearing these blinders, I'm wearing glasses. I can take them off. They're not glued to my fucking face. I can take those glasses off if I want to, but I'm afraid. You know, I've been seeing the world in pink my whole life because I'm wearing these glasses with pink shades on them. And I don't realize if I just take the glasses off, now I can see the world from a whole different light. Um, so self-awareness, taking ownership or responsibility over your power to change your life and not be a victim of your circumstances. Um, yeah, I'm gonna stop there. I think
No,
those are the two.
well, I think the gym I work out here, and I work with them on their own podcast, and I've gotten close with them, and I've also realized by working with them, on their show, just how great of coaches they are. And it's not necessarily even, kind of what you mentioned. And from my own experience as a coach, not necessarily like just being the most knowledgeable, but, being that people person as a coach and being able to, like you say, ask those more difficult questions that maybe some, the young women you're working with, or even the adults sometimes like haven't really answered, because you can't really empathize and you can't really make an exercise or activity relatable that's going to make their game better, or the experience in the gym better, unless you understand and know them and know where they're coming from. And I think that's one thing to any coach. It could be whatever you're coaching, sports, individuals, people in the workplace, in the office. It's how do you empathizing with people is so important, and we don't do enough of it across our entire culture. I talk about this all the time too. Just like, you got to know where people come from. You got to shut up and listen and ask questions like this to
Yeah.
know
Yeah,
what they're experiencing.
absolutely. And I think too, just to add to that, is realizing like why I started having my girls listen to podcasts, having them talk about their limiting beliefs and their fears and things like that, is because I am not going to get my girls to be the best athletes they can be without them really truly understanding who they are inside, without them really truly understanding this is my inner critic. This is what she usually says to me. Without working through that shit, guess what? That's going to show up when you're under pressure. That limiting belief that you're not good enough, that you're not fast enough, that you're not really a leader of this team, that is going to show up when you're under pressure. So I do that work with my girls and give them the awareness and the tools and the resources to handle when these things come up for them so that they can perform at their highest level. And that's why I think this work is so important. You know, I got into the fitness industry for the physical piece. I wanted a fat ass and strong arms and a flat stomach and all those things. And I got all those things and very quickly realized I'm still really unhappy with the person staring at me in the mirror. And that sucks because I thought that this was going to be the solution. How many of you watching, how many of my clients have come to me with that is their why? I want to have a better body. Well, what's below that? What's deeper than that? Because I know it's deeper. And until we can get there, which is, I agree, that's what makes a good coach. You have to see the person for more than what they present themselves to be, right? Because
Mm.
what you present yourself to me as is a bunch of stories that you've been told by other people and are being reinforced by other people and by society. Um,
No, uh, you hit the nail on the head. It's, you know, I have my own resistances, when it comes to getting into a new space, which is podcasting and video production after basketball. It's like, oh, how do I do all this? And what do I want to do all this? And I'm great at listening and learning and trying to become better. But, at the same time, if you kind of don't know where that direction is and don't know, kind of asking yourself again, how do you see this ending up? What does that dream of yours look like? And I've done this to people who have coached in health and fitness as well. When they come to you like, I want this, and it's like, do you know what that looks like? Like, what does that look like for you? What is getting, even if you ask them, what is getting to X weight or looking a certain way? What does that look like for you? What is your life like once you attain this? Have you thought about that? Because again, it's like what you said right there. Okay, I got the ass and the legs and the stomach, but like, is this what is? Am I still happy? I did all that work, but I didn't get. I still don't like me. And again, it's like finding what is it? Your purpose, the intentions why, and setting those motivations to where you want to go. Tough stuff. Definitely definitely not perfect at that one.
no, and it's a life. I mean, hey, it's a lifelong process. I'm an ownership coach, but I'm out here owning my shit every day because it's a lifelong. It's definitely um, a lifelong process. So
Yeah, I have a manager now, and that manager is all over me. So I got an ownership coach now, but I pay him. So, what about the physical? What, because you do a lot of great exercises, movement, mixed in with kettlebells, and again, really working on the flow of putting your body, I would say, in uncomfortable positions because we don't do that to our body. So I think exercising is getting out there and just from the stretches or the poses you can do is like some of the most important stuff. And then adding stress with some weight once you're in those positions is, one of the biggest things that could be prevented in injury. So what are some of these, whether women or the men you're working with, what are things that they don't have, or what are some of the things missing um, in their range of motions to, their core, their hip flexors, like what's missing? What do people need to work a lot more on?
that's a hard question because it really does depend, right? It
Of
depends on
course,
the
on the sport.
sport. Yeah, it depends on the person, but I'm going to go back to self-awareness and I'll get more specific. I won't just leave you with self-awareness, but that's a big piece of it, right? Even through movement, like if you are not in tune with your body, how do I pass you a ball? How do I get you to use your muscles efficiently? So I think that honestly, that actually will be my answer is I don't think the players that I work with don't know how to use their bodies efficiently. They can go through the motions. They know what a squat is. They know how to do the footwork drills, but they're just going through the motions. So I'll go back then a level deeper than that is presence. And I know you're asking me like specifically physically, but if I can't get you to be present with yourself and your body, I can't get you to use your muscles efficiently. I think, like, more specifically to answer your question, physically, what I feel like a lot of these athletes are missing is variety, to be honest. I'm a big proponent of variety, and I've gotten into a lot of debates and discussions around my method of training because you have a lot of coaches, and listen, I believe in the foundations, the compound lifts, you're squatting, you're deadlifting, you're cleaning, you're doing some of these foundational lifts, which I do think are really important. But I also feel like coaches drill those in and they do no mobility, they do no accessory work, they do nothing that has you using uh, intense mind muscle connection. And yeah, I think that's what a lot of these athletes are missing is variety. And when I found animal flow and kind of came up with this style of primal flow and primal movement, not that I came up with it, but started doing it and teaching it, that's what I realized, because they were so disconnected from their bodies. And these are athletes that are supposed to learn, like, you know how to move contralaterally, right? When you, well, I don't play basketball, but you move contralaterally when you walk, when you run, it's opposite hand, opposite foot. But if I slow that down and ask somebody to do a side kick through, which is an animal flow movement that's opposite hand, opposite foot, seeing people, these athletes struggle with that shows me there's such a lack, there's such a disconnect between their mind and their body. So, yeah, let's add some variety. And if you want some variety, follow me on Instagram because I got you. I'm all about the variety.
I couldn't agree more. I'm happy with the gym I have out here because they have that wide variety of classes, and they have like a 22,000 square foot facility as well. So it's just like, what do I want to do today? Where can I run around in here and tackle
What a
something?
fun, like, that's awesome that you can ask yourself that and have a space. Like, I want to visit this gym now. So when I'm in LA, I'm going to go visit.
You want to set up a class? I can connect you with them when you come
Do it.
through here, run a workshop.
Oh, yeah.
They are all about it. Yeah, I think I was talking with Jeff with this because you see this in football and in basketball as well. These non-contact ACL tears, and you're just like, again, I'm not saying I know the answer and know the truth, but it's like these things didn't happen before, and when you see that connection and understanding more of the science of the foot and how much all these guys, because I was one of them, wearing your shoe for 8 to 10 hours a day, whether you're at these basketball events or these camps, and it's like, oh, you got to get these shoes off, man. You got to get your feet in the ground. You got to, because all that, it's kind of tied to that our feet aren't touching the ground. So, like you said, that connection, not only are people, you ask them to do like some kind of exercises and their brain has never wrote that code yet. And those neurons have never connected to, and those synapses have never fired to say, oh, wait, opposite arm, opposite hand, opposite leg. It just hasn't happened yet. And you see that when you work with kids. I worked with kids like really young, and it's like you teach them a new move. It's like they literally are just like the Matrix, like writing that code in their brain, and that memory is there now. But like again, to not just drill it in, but to add the complexity to it, to take care of that. So I'm with you on the variety. It's massively, massively lacking. But the core. I mean, people's hip flexors. I walk and it's probably a pet peeve of mine. And if you're listening to this and you know me and I'm walking around with you, I might be judging your hip flexors. Like you're just like, oh man, that person's hips, they look tight.
They're not turning on.
They're not, like they're not getting that rotation up right there. And you're just like, ah man, God, it's just, and only because have had tight hips before. I had terrible core with all the back injuries I've had. So it's just like now that I can actually get out of a car and lift this leg up that high, it's like I want to make sure everybody has loose hips and strong hips. It's just...
And the core, I mean, I totally agree. The core is the foundation, and something that I drill, and you can ask any of my girls this if any of them are watching, because I told them that we were doing this. Like, we don't use the word abs, because we don't train abs as an athlete. We are training your core, which is all the way up here to all the way down here to everything that wraps around that. And I think that's another, just something that's not taught or not, I can get into the whole realm of like coaching and these club teams, which are usually like parents that are like I grew up cheerleading, right? And I remember the cheerleading coaches were moms who volunteered to coach the team, which is great, but like you're not a trainer. You don't know the body, the science. And then I'm drilling, like, here's a really common one, right? High knees. And coaches are like, get your knees up, get your knees up, get your knees up, get your knees up. Has a coach ever said to you or emphasized you driving your foot down and engaging your hamstring in the high knee? Nobody had ever coached me on that, ever said that to me. And as I learned and got into training and realized, like, man, this whole time I'm trying to get my knees up because, yeah, it burns, makes you sweat, get your heart rate up, but I'm not doing it correctly. I'm not doing it in a way that's going to help me function long term. And that's another thing, and I'll kind of leave it at that. My goal with my athletes is not just to make them the best athletes while I have them, but make them the best movers forever. I don't want you to train with me for 3 years and then you're so fucked up and injured that you can't move the rest of your life. And people, I think too, going back to, we talked about simplicity, taking your shoes off and putting your bare feet in the ground and soaking up the energy from the earth is one of the most simple ways you can live a healthier lifestyle today. Everybody watching this can take their fucking shoes off and go stick them in the grass, and you just now lived healthier. You just now lived. Like, I'm sweating because I think because
Scientifically proven.
I'm not.
Scientifically proven as well.
Well, yeah, and but what I'm, yeah, and movement does not have to be complicated. If you don't want to go to a gym, just go roll around outside. Get out of your head, get into your body, listen to what your body is telling you to do. A lot of those injuries come from moving in one range of motion, repeating the same patterns over and over and over again, just like your thought patterns. You repeat those over and over and over again. When you introduce a new thought pattern, what happens? We get injured. Our ego shows up. We don't want that new thought because all we've trained are those same patterns. The same thing with the body. You do the same shit over and over and over again, and then you introduce something new. It hurts because it's different. You're not used to moving in that way. When actually this is a really resilient, incredible machine we got walking around here, worth like lots of money, more than any technology.
Yeah, we can't even replicate it. I mean, going back to the foot, I mean that technology and that design, that
Thirty
we've,
percent of your body's joints are in your feet. 200,000 receptors in your feet and your ankles.
yeah. When I became more conscious of my feet, like even like right now, I'm just like pressing the bottom, like especially when you, I forgot what documentary I watched recently, but it was like, especially in the arch of the foot and how many receptors are there, and it's just like, oh, just it feels good to rub that arch of your foot onto something, and just giving it that massage that it needs. Like it's like that's just one easy one you could do right there. I'm not going to go into it, but I mean, I'm going to add hamstrings into that core area. I'm going to go all the way down to the Achilles as well, because tight hamstrings on some of these young athletes, it's just like, you've never deadlifted before? Never done a J curl? We need to get those things. We got to strengthen those things. And like when I work with people, it's like, all right, like why we're not touching weights, we're not touching anything. No, we're doing strictly mobility testing right
And
now.
I'm gonna fuck your world up anyway.
We're gonna see where your core is at. I remember I worked with one
Yeah.
of my former teammates. Like he was a college basketball star, played overseas, was drafted in the NBA, and then he hadn't played in a while. He was trying to make a comeback, and we didn't even touch weights. We're just doing some J curls with like a broom handle and some hollow body holds to test the hamstring strength as well as some of the core strength of your abs. Um, some three-way, what's it called? Calf raises, strength to see where his Achilles are at. He couldn't walk the next day. We didn't touch weight. And this is, a former college professional athlete. It's just like, yeah, dude, we got a lot of work, man. It's like, I don't want you going out there and then, doing some shoulder rotations. It's like, dude, we can't tear your labrum out there. I mean, this is an investment. We gotta make sure these things are tight and they're strong. Because if not, I mean, you're not gonna be able to play. You're not gonna be able to make that money. And so that investment into your health, even as you get older and you're not a professional athlete, do it, people. Do it. And you can do it even all the ways that Danielle said it. Just go out there and roll around the dirt. It's good for you.
There's no way but your way. And everyone who tries to feed you, like, I never tell my clients that like my workout program is the way you need to move. I just want you to move. And I want you to have fun while you do it. I want you to enjoy it. That's it.
Most important part.
That's it.
Don't take yourself too seriously, but we are going to close out on that. I love this show. Thank you so much for tuning in and for you for jumping on. Please let people know where not only they can find you, but they can sign up to some of your classes, your courses, and let people know, because I have listeners. For some reason, a lot of people listening in Belarus, Russia, or Belarus, the country itself. So shout out to all you guys. So, let people know if there is no range to where they live that they can join your stuff. Please plug yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, so I really appreciate you and your time. Yeah, please connect with me. My website is daniellegertner.com. I'm also on Instagram at Danielle Gertner. And I'm sure that'll be linked somewhere in your show notes. My name will pop up somewhere. But please connect with me any way that I can help you or point you in the right direction or connect you to somebody else that I know. I'd be happy to. And yeah, if you want to own your shit, if you want to build better habits and mindsets, then I'm your girl. I love talking about this stuff. I love all different types of movements and um, helping you build better habits for life. It's always my goal that when people work with me once, that they have a really solid foundation forever. So thank you. I appreciate you. And let's do this again sometime and talk about probably another whole hour and a half of other good stuff that we could probably dive into.
I mean, listen, the show is open for however long someone wants to come on. So if people want to come on for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, like even if they want to do them in person, we'll make sure they have whatever they need. You need a coffee, you need soap, whatever. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna get down to business, get down
I
to
would
brass
love to do the
tacks.
next one in person. That would be really fun.
If I ever make it out to Austin, we might be coming down there with the bus into Texas in August. So I'll keep you posted with that. Bring the hoop bus out there.
Yeah.
We want to take it all the way to Florida, so we'll see about that. We're still working on all the logistics and the partnerships and sponsorships, but yes, there will definitely be more shows to come. And hold off real quick, I got to sign out the show, but I want to say goodbye to you after that. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you are tuning in, Facebook, Twitch, where else? Twitter, wherever you guys are watching the show. Thank you for coming on the bus with me. Be sure to check out Danielle's stuff. All that stuff will be in the show notes. And then if you're following me on Instagram or Facebook, there'll be tags to all of her pages and stuff there. And yeah, if you want to support this show, we are sponsorless right now. We've lost our sponsor. Yes, I know we've lost. So if you want to support this show, just even subscribing, sharing this show so more people can find out all this information about the guests, about myself, share away. And then there's also a Patreon page. You can donate. Become a $5 a month donor to keep the wheels on this bus moving. And that's it, everybody. You're either on the bus or off the bus. Thank you for tuning in. Okay.